1. I have a second to senior position in my department at work, so theoretically, I have my choice of station to go to when I come in, as long as my senior doesn't want it. My senior co-worker had a station she always goes to, and it's understood that she likes the 3rd station and I like 7th station. Our stations are even denoted by personal items and magnets. Mine is preferred because I have medical issues with overheating, and the floor fan points at that location. My personal items at that station include a backup fan in case the big one just isn't enough. Now, this fan is way quieter than the big fan. The new manager complains about the noise of the big one. I have poor hearing and it doesn't bug me. Recently, the new manager has started stealing my station because the fan in it is quieter, when everyone knows there's a preference. Whatever, it's the least awful thing she's done, so it doesn't matter much to me, as long as I'm not there to need the station. Where she crosses the line is stealing my station right at the start of my shift. I ask her if I could have it, since there are plenty of open stations. She says, "No, you need to be able to work at any station." Knowing that I have an agreement with the office that I can always have the floor fan on if I need it, I start to get some ideas and question. So I can have my personal fan for my things first, right? She quickly gives me that awful manager who thinks they're God face. "No, go to your station now and start typing, or I'll write you up for not starting on time." I comply like the peaceful worker drone I am, and click on the big fan while going to the station right next to her. At this point I'm already sweating, but I'm close enough to the fan that I won't pass out. Just then she clicks the fan off. I sluggishly click it back on. It goes off and on for the whole hour, but at this point I'm seeing spots, so I give her a heads up. "The office says the fan stays on if I need it on." So she goes to click it right back on. "I don't care, this thing is too loud. I'm almost office staff anyways, and things will change around here soon." Within the next 2 hours, I'm unresponsive due to heat sickness. At this point, I've been magically placed in a medical unit for a few hours. I don't know how I got here or who called, but my girlfriend brought my things from work, but all she got out of the managers was that I'm dismissed for a few days. All I know right now is that the new manager has a paradigm report to worry about, and I hopefully get my spot from now on. I stopped taking my personal fan home because the lobby staff kept making me have a receipt for it, and not buzzing me out until I proved it was mine. Part of an old manager's rules because a coworker kept trying to take a keyboard home. But I'm going to just suck it up from now on, so I know I'll have my fan. 2. Was in the Marines in 1987, stationed at Marine Corps Air Station Kaneohe Bay on Oahu. Beautiful place to live, horribly expensive to do much of anything off base due to prices. We lived in a squad bay, literally across the street from the base Burger King. Always been a fan of their product, what can I say? Our battalion's chow hall was a 10-minute walk from the barracks I stayed in. The closest barracks to the chow hall was a 7 to 8 minute walk. The chow hall was named Anderson Hall, named for a Navy Cross recipient, if memory serves, and it was a hole, even by 1980s Marine infantry standards. Think Biloxi Blues chow hall scene style. All the tables and chairs were broken or lopsided, no condiments, bland, over, or undercooked. You get whatever they have, screw you, deal with it. You're in the infantry, or don't eat. Some of you know this feeling. If you don't know, if you're in the US military service, chow is part of the compensation you get. They don't say what, how much, or how often, but it's part of the deal. If you are not in your area at chow time and, say, ended up at the Air Wing Chow Hall, you, with your chow hall card, could eat there instead. They won't turn you down because you're at the wrong chow hall, but they definitely keep track of that. Since the long walk, compared to Burger King, in the hot, humid Hawaiian sun, so the aforementioned hole on my time was not appealing to me. I would go to the Burger King lounge a couple of lunches a week. along with lots of other lance corporals from my unit, as well as others at 8 at Anderson Hall. The Burger King got busy, but they would do their thing, and life was okay, as it gets for a lance corporal in the Marine Infantry, not out in the field. The Air Wing Chow Hall got a lot of repeat business as well. Apparently the battalion commander, through the mess hall officer, got wind of this, probably due to the large number of meals being prepared and not eaten on a daily basis. Also, the other chow halls probably were bitching about all the extra meals they had to prepare for irritated Marines who don't belong in their decent, well-maintained chow hall, where there are options and politeness, and seconds, and edible food. I can say this with confidence because orders got issued, and everyone who had a chow hall card, and could eat for free, was to line up in their respective barracks 3 times a day, have a head count to make sure nobody was missing, and then marched to the Anderson Hall for their meal. Being the good Marines that we were, we submitted to this latest assault on common decency with all the grace you could expect from angry infantry grunts. There are several types of unit movements in the Marines, route step being one. Route step is a very casual unit march, where you can be casual about the movement, talking is permitted, etc. Day 1 we went to the chow hall, route step. Pitch, 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 all the way there, until we were dismissed from formation to go eat. Once dismissed, fully 2/3 of us walked away without setting foot in the chow hall. Repeat several times a day for several days. The poor NCO, who would be forced to route step us down there, got so tired of the bitching about bad chow, and life in the infantry in general. We ended up marching to the chow hall. Imagine a movie or parade unit movement, everyone in step, facing forward, looking good and most definitely no bitching, to make his life just a little less worse for having drawn the short straw and assigned this task. Initially, if we were off on the weekend, we wouldn't have to march to the chow hall. This lasted 1 weekend. Second weekend, if you were found in the barracks at chow time, in formation and off to chow you went. Most Marines were never slow on the uptake, and were scarce if in the area on the weekend during certain times. Finally, the light bulb turned on, and someone came up with the idea of asking why we didn't want to eat at the chow hall. What a day! Given permission to bitch about your terrible conditions, with theoretically no repercussions. At first it was the platoon sergeant, with an informal bitch session. Bitching completed. He took his results to the platoon commander, who apparently didn't believe the 15-year veteran infantryman. So then a platoon meeting was called with the platoon commander, first lieutenant, in charge. The tone and language definitely changed, but the bitching came fast, furious, and amazingly politely to the lieutenant. He reports this to the captain, who holds a company meeting. Rinse and repeat. Still not good enough. Major Buffnuts from battalion has to come down and hear the exact same thing, although much more politely he has been told 3 times already. After our little chat with Major Buffnuts, the force marching to the chow hall stopped, and all was quiet over the weekend. Come Monday morning, the chow hall officer and the senior enlisted chef were mysteriously reassigned, replaced by the next punching bags assigned to lovely Anderson Hall. We were also told that Air Wing chow halls were off limits to the unwashed grunts. It got a lot better, but never good. I would like to think that Major Buffnuts or the Colonel went to Anderson Hall and sampled the wares. But that would be asking too much. Things were definitely edible after the culling, but never Air Wing good. Someone screwed up on several occasions, and I ended up on the Pearl Harbor Navy base, and ate like a king comparatively. I think that this is the only time in my military career that bitching about something bad and needing a change actually had a positive impact. 3. For context, I am a pastor in a large denomination that takes years to become fully recognized or ordained as a clergy person. There are several interviews with different teams to see if a person is fit to serve. When this story occurred, I was already past 4 steps and working on the last and final step to be ordained. Part of this step required recording and submitting a sermon on one of only a set number of biblical texts. Sermons using outside texts would not be accepted. At the time, I was an associate pastor in a relatively large church, almost 1,000 on a Sunday between multiple services, and I was initially hired to be one of the primary preachers. However, the senior pastor would set the sermon series, sermon topics, and scriptures for each Sunday. We were asked to stay on theme and on topic for any service in which we preached. Soon after I arrived at this church, the senior pastor, who had been there for many years, announced their retirement. An interim would take their place until the next long-term pastor was selected. We'll call this interim Pastor Richard. The first time I met with Pastor Richard, after the former pastor's retirement and his start, he told me that he didn't think I had what it took to be a pastor. He then proceeded to strip me of nearly all my pastoral responsibilities. Prior to his arrival, I regularly preached 3 or 4 Sundays a month, was called for visits, and oversaw the sacraments. After meeting with Pastor Richard, I was relegated to organizing a team of 125 volunteers, ensuring we had liturgists, ushers, greeters, and parking lot attendants. My preaching was also cut to just once a month at best, and even though I was working on my paperwork for the final step toward ordination, Pastor Richard refused to schedule any of the biblical text required for the sermon for my ordination paperwork. To his credit, he did say that I could use whatever verses from the Bible that I wanted, so long as I stayed on theme for the sermon and series. However, I refuse to bend scripture to say something that it doesn't. If a text is about forgiveness, I won't try and proof-text it to make it fit a theme of justice. Somehow, every time I was scheduled to preach, the theme of the sermon did not fit any of the handful of texts I was allowed to preach for my paperwork. For anyone curious, it was also a requirement that the sermon be delivered in the church you were serving at the time, meaning I couldn't fill in for someone else in order to complete the task. Eventually, Pastor Richard's interim tenure was drawing to a close. There was one Sunday between his departure and the next senior pastor's arrival. That Sunday was not part of a sermon series and did not have a selected time. It was preacher's choice. This would have been perfect because I could at least get one sermon recorded for my paperwork to submit. Usually you'd want to record all of the texts so that you could choose the best one of the group. However, I was not scheduled as one of the preachers for any of the services. The 2 scheduled preachers for Sunday were Greg and Sarah. Greg was not a pastor and was not on track to become a pastor, so I went to Pastor Richard and asked if I could take Greg's place so that I could record at least one sermon for submission for ordination. Richard told me that I could not switch with Greg and he would not allow me to take his place. I agreed that I would not take Greg's place and left his office. But shortly after I left Richard's office, I went over and met with Sarah. I knew she wanted that particular weekend off, so I offered to switch preaching assignments. I would take the weekend I wanted, and she would switch for a weekend a month down the line. Sarah immediately agreed, and I went to the person who sent out our weekly email and had the information switched. I did not ask permission, and I did not tell Richard what I had done. The email went out on Wednesday night, and on Thursday morning, when Richard came in, the first thing he did was come into my office. He demanded to know why I disobeyed his order. I simply pointed out that he told me I couldn't preach in Greg's place, which I wasn't. Instead, I would preach in Sarah's place. There wasn't much he could do because information had already been sent out to the church, so he left my office in a rage. I preached on Sunday using one of the required texts and used it to submit for the final step in my ordination. Unfortunately, I was not ordained that year. It would take me another year beyond that, but the look on his face when he realized I had followed his order to the letter, and there was nothing he could do about it, still makes me chuckle, years later. 4. I had a landlord who was pretty absent. I lived in this building, a high-rise, like 20 stories, for over 10 years. He, despite living next door to me, was absent and cold personally, but cool enough. Rent was good. Our agreement was never bother him about anything unless it was an absolute emergency. Shower head wonky? Go buy a new one. Fridge breaks? Get it fixed. Or two, just buy a new one. Take it out of what you pay in rent. Lost a receipt? I don't care. I know more or less what a fridge costs, just take it out of rent. Finally, his wife decides she wants more rent, wants to rent the place out as an office, not legal, and wants us out ASAP. I agree to move out a month early and get a month's rent back plus deposit. Complete 180 on their part. The place is ruined, can't give you anything until you fix all this stuff. Two main things. My cats did scratch up the leather legs of the dining table, and the pull-up bar made 2 dents in the doorframe of the kitchen, which was quite nice hardwood. They come to me with this list of tons of stuff, like, oh, you hung a photo frame here, the tile is slightly chipped. This is the busiest work time of year for me, but I'm trying to be cooperative, sure. I got the table legs re-leathered. I spackle the photo frame wall hole, can't do anything about the door frame, take it out of the deposit, patch the tile. I like dozens of little everyday wear and tear things. You want me to change the window screens? These are all new screens and in nicer shape than when I moved in, but I did them all. I trusted the guy, gotta get my money. At the end, he should have been giving me 24,000 renminbi. That's about £2,500. He gave me 5. I still need to use the money to fix all that stuff. If you can't accept the 5, I can't give you anything at all. I was very annoyed, but took the 5. Now, people in the building are gossipy. I don't participate, but I did tell this one older lady about my frustration. She told everyone. The wife went from being the star of the mommies group of the building to nobody wanting to talk to her. People shunned the guy, too. I originally told them I was planning on moving to another city, but an opportunity came up, and I ended up renting a similar unit in the same building. So they thought they could just screw me over and not have to see me, but now they still did, often. A year later, the office calls me with some questions about how to do something with the floor heating. I go. Door frame is not fixed, still has dents. I call the guy like, what the hell, man? And he tells me to mind my own business. 5 years later, I see the light at my old place is still on at 3 a.m. That's odd. I go to check. The door is open. And the place is just trashed, ruined, cabinets broken, stuff on the walls, lazy landlord, and dents on the kitchen doorframe are still there. So the guy never fixed anything, just kept my money. By this time, smartphones were popular and we had a chat group for the whole building, so about 500 people. I took pictures and posted everything. Apparently, he had also nicked these people's deposit, and there was a huge ruckus when they trashed the place. Cops called. All these people chime in with complaints and pictures, people smoking in the hallways, leaving leaky rubbish outside the front door, videos of people using foul language in front of children, dirty footprints. He got fined a lot for 1, creating a public disturbance, 2, degrading the quality of the living space, 3, illegally renting a residence as an office, and to top it off, the building management wouldn't grant him permission to have workers in to fix the place. So it sat there empty for like 6 months. The fines were big, too. Take 1.5 months' rent from me, lose a year's rent. Suck it, bro. 5. Okay, buckle up, this is a long one. I'm a 26-year-old man. Was dating my high school sweetheart for 5 years. Yep, you guessed it. Young love, ignorant bliss, the whole 9. At the time, this girl was my world, my life, my future. Things got interesting, though. Reflecting on the relationship now and all I've learned, it was unstable, toxic, and at times abusive. There were so many red flags I ignored trying to make it work. Not knowing any better, I fought to keep us together despite constant fights, arguments, and sleepless nights. Nearing the end of the relationship in a last-ditch effort to either save what was or get closure that it is in fact over, I I naively suggested to open our relationship. My thought process was if she slept with someone else and felt rotten and or dirty, then there was hope we could move past it together. If she had slept with someone else and came home to me seemingly unbothered, then I knew it was over and beyond fixing. I, however, did not consider the emotional damage I would in turn subject myself to. Now, I should clarify, I had done some homework on my suggestion and found most blogs, forums, and panels all mentioned that rules are important. So as I mentioned before, this was a trial in finding out just how far gone the relationship was. The rules we set forward are the following. We bring no one to our house, protection must be used, we would never meet the persons together, and the last and most important one for me was I wanted to know as soon as she hooked up with someone, so we could talk and I could make my decision based on her behavior. I should mention I had no intention of seeing anyone else at this time. I was devoted to her, and had no desire to see anyone else. This was purely to see if she still had love in her heart for me. Okay, now into the nitty-gritty. So not only was her hookup less than a week after we opened, she also broke a rule and saw her partner for over 2 months without telling me. Now I know this may be a point to argue, but I saw this as a betrayal and cheating. We made rules and they were ignored. Turns out she was seeing a 45-year-old cop through a divorce of his own. At the time, she and I were 22. I'm not shaming age gaps, but this one made me sick. 1 week after our 5-year anniversary, yep, she dumped me. Now, I know this is becoming a novel, but the best is yet to come. Now, let me tell you where the dog fits into this. 2 years into the relationship, we were given the opportunity to foster a rescue dog. The day this beautiful, kind soul of a companion came into my life, I was in love. Screw fostering, will take her. Now, she wasn't perfect at first, but with love, guidance, and patience, she honestly is one of the best dogs I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. Let alone getting to call her my girl. Now, like I said before, she came with some areas to work on, like not eating couches, 2 to be exact, also having a strong dislike of thunderstorms and other behaviors most common with rescues. But she most notably had epilepsy, requiring medication twice a day to keep them at bay. Alright, so now we're caught up to the breakup. After dealing with my world burning, I became angry and decided I wanted nothing to do with my ex. I helped get all her stuff out and she moved in with her dad. Knowing that my dog would remind me of her, I told her to also take the dog. Now her dad is a chain-smoking, explosive drunk, and after giving our dog away, I lasted all of 2 hours before I begged to get her back. I realized I can't lose everything all in one day. She very willingly gave the dog back. Both of us agreed that my house had more yard space for her and it was a cleaner, more stable home for her. I once again had my dog in my life, and she was the best thing to ever have happened to me. Fast forward 2 weeks later, I got cited from animal control for having an unregistered dog in the house, and had 48 hours to register and pay the fee, or I risked massive fines. I went that day. Now, where I live, pets become registered to the occupant of the registering address. Then dog tags are issued to that name. My girl is microchipped to the same address. So, to recap, my ex moves out 2 weeks later. I am forced to register my dog solely in my name and my address. Now it's time to talk about the verbal agreement we made regarding my dog's health. I had agreed to what I'm choosing to call visitation rights. I'll explain. So I worked weekends, 3 12-hour shifts. My dog gets her meds at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., so enter my ex. She would come by on the weekends with written notice and give our dog her meds and spend some time with her. Then I would take over when I got home and the rest of the week when she was working. So the rules to the visitation. She was to give me written notice prior to stopping by, and if I said no to her picking her up, that was final. She was rarely told no unless I was already out with our dog or it was late at night. It's worth mentioning that my ex still had her house key, so effectively, she could come and go as she pleased from my residence. Now fast forward just under 2 years, my ex was very good at keeping with the program, written notice, healthy boundaries, and limited contact. I should add, at the start, she and I would chat about the relationship and possibly getting back together or not. Then I was told that if she couldn't find anyone better than me, we would get back together. I'm no one's safe bet, and that comment broke me. I was hurt, broken, and angry, and from then on, was personally done with her. I started seeing other people and really living my own life. I'm a firm believer that when you buckle down and take charge of your own life, the universe will reward you. So from then on, it was limited contact. If my ex would message for the dog, then she could take her and I would leave the house and get coffee so I didn't have to see her. Okay, let me introduce you all to my current girlfriend, JT. She is an incredible, beautiful, smart, funny, and witty person. I could use every possible vernacular in the English language to describe her, and it still wouldn't do her justice. Honestly, folks, I couldn't have gotten a better girlfriend if I had ordered one from a magazine. She is truly my first love. My ex may have been my first with many things, but love wasn't one of them, although at the time I thought she was. Okay, I'm off topic. So I met JT and things were surreal for the first time in 2 years since I was dumped. I believed I could love again. As my relationship with JT grew and the love not only grew but blossomed, it's worth mentioning my ex's behavior to me and our agreement became sparse. My ex began showing up without notice to take the dog. At one point me and JT were laying in bed, bare under the covers, when my ex opened my bedroom door to retrieve our dog. Obviously, this startled us both. I rushed to check my phone that perhaps I missed a text. Nope, okay, that was unsettling. Now to add to the disrespect of the arrangement, my ex was keeping the dog for days at a time without informing me. I would have to text her and ask, "Hey, have you got her?" "Oh yeah, she's with me." Okay, no problem, but as per our agreement, you need to make me aware of your plans with her." "Yeah, okay, slip my mind." Okay, so now you see my growing concern with the ongoing disrespect. I had no obligation to even let her see the dog legally. She was my sole property. Let me clarify real quick. Remember how I was cited by animal control? Yeah, well, where I live, animals are seen as property, and seeing as how I was cited after she left, she became mine. Amidst my newfound love and bliss and growing concern, life hit me with one more unfortunate curveball. I got evicted. Landlord got his girlfriend pregnant and wanted the house I was renting for them to live in. Man, when I tell you that was a shock at the time, with some other things going on, it was overwhelming. Turns out it was a blessing in disguise. We found an amazing house 40 minutes away from the city. I live on the cutest farm. Things with JT and I are going amazing. Not only has she made me feel things I thought were long dead, but she made me feel new experiences as well. Decision time. I hate my ex for what she did to me, and I love JT with everything and more. One is getting in the way of the other, so I devised a plan. Taking advantage of my new residence and the distance along with anonymity, I'm going to move out and cancel the arrangement with my ex. Alright, time to get to work. 1 week leading up to the move, I denied her attempts to see the dog. I rented a large box truck, and with the help of a small army of close friends and available family, we packed and moved the entire house in 1 day. I would like to take the time now to thank all of you who helped me that day. It was such an empowering and liberating day. So 2 pickup trucks and a minivan loaded up to go off to the new house. Me, my old man, and a dear friend packed the last into the box truck. Now, I pre-wrote the message to my ex in my notes, consulted my lawyer appraising them of the facts and documents to make sure what I had written was clear, concise, and contained the right verbiage for legal standing if need be. I hopped in the truck, started the engine, sent the text, and drove off. Oh, I forgot to mention I did in fact change the locks and made my landlord aware of everything. Off I drove to start my new life, happy, healthy, and full of bright prosperity. So as you may have guessed, my phone blew off from my ex. Texts, calls, voicemails, and everything. It all fell on deaf ears. My word was final, and I was finally ready to close this ugly, painful chapter of my life. I will tell you all, I'm naturally a logical thinker. This sometimes leads to a healthy level of paranoia. So my new address was given to trusted people only, written on paper and requested once we all met up at the new place, and burned in the laneway. Why? Well, I know my ex and her family, and I've seen them do less than legal things, and know who her dad is, and the contacts he knows. I took zero chances when it came to keeping my new life and address safe. Also remember, I told you she's dating a cop. Knowing the fallout that awaits me, I took steps into protecting what I longed for. We moved in for June 1st of 2022. I should mention, I live with my now girlfriend and my roommate, my brother from another mother. My roommate moved in a month after my ex moved out, and I can update for any questions regarding him, but now back to the story. All members of the house were to follow strict security measures, anticipating a reaction from my ex. I had quickly found out that my ex was trying to find where I lived through contacting friends, family, and my old landlord, trying to find the new address to no avail. Now, I work a full-time job, as well as run my own woodworking business. One day, I was filing paperwork in the front office when I saw my ex drive by in her vehicle. She drives an extremely recognizable car, so I knew it was her. I wasted no time. I drove to my local law enforcement and made them aware of everything. I wanted to start a case, just to be safe, if anything happened. So, side note, but very important, I was given the opportunity to purchase a puppy. After discussion with the house, we decided getting our girl a little sister was a great idea. You know, get her company and give her a friend to run around the farm with. To say they were inseparable is an understatement. They loved each other so much, and it was the best move we ever made. Right, June was starting great. Getting used to the new place and watching our older dog mentor and thrive with her sister all was great. Moving to August 2022, our guards began to fall, and we started letting the two out without being helicopters to them. August 12th, 2022, oh man. That day will forever remain with me rent-free. JT and I are at work and the roommate's home with the kiddos, 4:15 p.m. I receive a phone call that will change my bliss for some time. Our older dog is gone. The hell do you mean? I let them out the back, said my roommate. Door open, I was doing the dishes, turned around, and only the little one was there. Well, did you look for them? Yes, I did. Call the damn microchip now. My roommate hangs up. It's worth mentioning he misunderstood how a canine microchip works and thought it was like a GPS tracker. Work refuses to let me leave early, and by the time I got home, 3 hours had passed since the disappearance. I spent at least an hour exhausting any search method I could think of, at the time thinking if she ran off, she couldn't have gotten far. After that hour, I started to think, there's no way she runs off, and the little one, only 6 weeks old at the time, doesn't follow. Well, now it dawns on me. What? No. Damn, she must have taken her. Off to the police I go. Hey, officer, remember me from a few weeks ago? Yeah, what can I do for you? Well, I think my fears came true. I think my ex stole her. Ensue crying, panic, and fear. How did she find me? How is this possible? Okay, take a breath, tell me everything. As I explain, I am asked questions like, are you sure she didn't run off? I explain, no way she did, and the younger pup didn't follow. I make my statement, broken, drained, and beside myself with concern and fear, I go home. No more than 2 hours later, I get a call from the officer. Alright, so I've made some calls and I'm 99% sure she took her. What? How? I mean, what did you find? I called your vet and an order for medication was placed by your ex 10 days ago. Okay, damn, what happens now? Well, this seems pretty clear-cut. I'll investigate a bit more and make a case to the Crown. Okay, well, my fears are confirmed. Damn, she somehow found me and actually stole my beautiful dog. To this day, I have no idea how she found me. I suspect she put a GPS tracker on my truck. I had Officer M looking into the possibility if her cop boyfriend looked me up in the system, but that was ruled out very quickly. Now, the painful waiting game, hoping justice will prevail. Each week I call for an update. On week 3 I'm informed he's built a case and sent it to the Crown to see if it's a clear-cut case of stolen property. Week 5 I'm told to hang tight, it's under review. At this point I became impatient and decided I can't sit and wait. I took all the evidence and paperwork I had. I took it to both our vets as well as every vet in the region. I knew she lived, explained and made airtight protocols for if and when statements. Week 6, again, I call, and I'm hit with bad news. The Crown, quite annoyed I was told, made it clear to the officer that this was a property dispute and needs to be settled in family court. Well, now it's time to lawyer up. I scraped every penny I had to hire a good family lawyer, and man did I find a good one. Turns out she was divorced and took my case a bit personally. She starts to prepare the necessary documents. 2 more weeks go by, and thank whomever you believe in, I became impatient and went full proactive mode. I received a phone call at work from my family vet. "Hi, this is a vet clinic, just confirming your appointment for Monday at 11:25 a.m. Well, I sure as hell am now. I ring my lawyer, explain what happened, and put a rush on the papers having to call my dad to borrow money. You see, now that I know exactly where she's going to be with my dog, I needed a legal reason to wait for her. So I used a court case as a reason to serve her in person, thus being able to obtain my dog's custody until the hearing. That Sunday, I didn't sleep a wink, 6:30 a.m. I parked my truck at the hardware store around the back of the vet, so my ex wouldn't see it. 8 a.m. the clinic opens. I walked in, documents in hand, and tell them everything and insist they let her in so I may serve her the documents and take my dog. Regrettably, I forgot this was a functioning clinic and was told this could not happen inside, out of respect to the other patients. Oh crap, well, that's more than fair. Well, what are my options? The vet said, "Well, we can barter from the clinic under the proceeds of crime, and you can serve her in the parking lot." Perfect, I'll wait in the sub shop down the way. You absolutely cannot inform her of this. Not a problem, we hope you get her back. We wish you luck. Off to the sub shop I go, for the longest 2 hours of my life. I get a phone call from JT, fully aware of my plan. "Hey, we got rained out. I'm off work. You want me there?" "Yes, please. Come right away. You can help record and dial the police." The dominoes are stacked. My shaky finger on the last one. JT shows up and we rehearse the plan. I must have checked the time 1,000,000 times. The time comes, I say, "Where the hell is she?" And JT, with the calmest voice, goes, "She's right there." WTF, I ran out, papers in hand. JT calls the cops and starts recording. I utter the legal jargon, serve her the paperwork, and latch on to JT as gentle and firm as I can, so my ex can't break my grip and wait for the police. They arrive in minutes, get our stories, check my paperwork, separate us, and attempt to figure out the situation. Lo and behold, cop boyfriend shows up. I'm told he's off duty and is here in boyfriend capacity. Me, JT, 2 uniformed officers, my ex and cop boyfriend talking, waiting with a level of uncertainty of the outcome. 2 hours goes by, and we ask what's going on. I'm told that they are trying to defuse the situation, but cop boyfriend has requested a supervisor. Well, he shows up and talks in great length to the boyfriend, seeming frustrated. 3 hours go by, the supervisor walks up to me and demands our paperwork. I happily oblige. He reviews the documents and walks off, then comes back a minute or two later. "You got a leash?" This clinic happens to be right next door to a pet store, so just in case, I bought a leash in the 3 hours I was waiting. I hand him the leash. Words cannot describe the feeling of relief as we watch the supervisor walk our dog over to us after so long. Gone for 10 weeks total and waiting for 3 hours for the cops to deal with the situation. October 31st, 2022 will be a day I will never forget. We will forever celebrate that day. Folks, we got her. What was once stolen by someone who couldn't move on was finally returned. Thank you to anyone who listened to all this. I needed to tell my story, and I hope this was a good cup of tea for someone. I mean what I say. If anyone is going through something similar or is looking for help, please don't hesitate to reach out. For any questions, comments, or PMs, I will read them. But I wish to update them publicly. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge's Ice Cream, episode 356. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories. Before you go, please do hit the like button and share the video with friends and family. If you want early access to the video, support me on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. You'll also find links to the Hellfreezer merchandise store on Teespring, as well as a link to the Hellfreezer Discord. And if you really enjoyed today's video, why not leave a tip? Do that by clicking on the heart with a $sign underneath the video. And while none of that is ever required, it is very much appreciated and helps me out. Right, no other bets and bobs today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: warm weather inspired, how do you feel about savory ice cream? It's always been a concept to me that's kind of made me raise an eyebrow. Like, I don't object to it, I just kind of don't want anything to do with it. You enjoy that chicken ice cream there, buddy, that's fine. I'll have my mint choc chip. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, we'll have the answer of the day from a previous video. And this answer comes from Revenge's Ice Cream 297. I think it was in relation to people filming in gyms, which seems to become a very silly and annoying thing in recent years. And today's answer comes from Kathy Beckford. I worked in a couple of gyms, but don't like working out in them. I'd rather do it at home. However, if I did, I'd be okay with them filming on the other side of the gym from me, making sure they didn't point the camera at me, and asked everyone first if it was okay. And I think that's fair enough. Thank you very much for your answer, Kathy. I'm generally in the don't film in gyms, especially don't film in locker rooms, which has also become quite a problem. Yeah, if you want to film yourself, your progress in that, build a home gym if it's that important to you. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.